Okay, so the Six Nations is just over a day away, just about, I think, 26, 27 hours until kick-off in Paris between France and Wales. Things to look out for in this year's Six Nations. There's been some more rule changes, and of course, we do have the 20-minute red card. I've made my views clear on the 20-minute red card the other day in the Rugby Union State of the Game video I did. I'm not sold on a 20-minute red card, and I do believe that malicious intent or deliberate foul play, it should always be a red. You can tell when there's mitigating circumstance, and you can tell when clearly it's unintentional, accidental high contact, or there is a mitigating circumstance like the players slipping into the tackle. And there's no malicious intent. There's a lot to do with body language, how the game is being played, so how the referee, with that feel of the game, with his touch judges, how they feel the game is being played. Has there been some dirty play or some niggle in the game leading up to a said red card offence, that kind of thing. I do think it may potentially A, undermine the authority of the on-field officials, and B, we're seeing yet more refereeing by video replay, which I didn't enjoy in the World Cup with the yellow red card review system. I think World Rugby have got this one wrong personally, but we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how it will impact games. But I think in a tournament of this magnitude, like the Six Nations, or conversely the Rugby Championship, if you're more of a Rugby Championship fan in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm not a massive fan of these experimental rules being tried out in a major Tier 1 level competition, in my personal opinion. They could have left it for the summer tours, for example, where the Northern Hemisphere teams go down under, or they could have left it for the autumn internationals when the Southern Hemisphere teams come to the Northern Hemisphere to tour for a month. I think that would have been a better time to potentially experiment with a 20-minute red card. At the same time, I don't think it's a necessary rule change. As I say, I do think it undermines the officials on the field, and then we are refereeing by replay, which makes the game more stop-start, lengthy spells where they're reviewing from multitude of different angles. And I think the referee on the field and his two touch judges, who are also referees, by the way, on another day, they're the officials. They can have a good feel of the atmosphere of the game, the feel of the game, the body language of the players. Has there been any niggle? Has there been niggle in a previous game? The relationship between the captains, all that kind of stuff. Referees generally have a good feel of the game after the first 5 minutes. This 20-minute red card, I think it's an unnecessary rule change, but we shall see how it plays out. And is it a good rule change or not? Because time will tell. In regards to the nations themselves, I think Ireland and France, for me, are still that step ahead than the rest. I think Scotland and Italy will be fun to watch in attack. They're very attack-minded. They kick less than the other four nations. So with Italy and Scotland, they want to attack from deep. They're more willing to run the ball than kick the ball. Although with some of the rule changes like the 50-22, for example, which is sort of similar to the 40-20 in Rugby League or the 20-40 in Rugby League, where a kick like that is rewarded where you retain possession, I think that's a good and a bad thing. I think Rugby Union's obviously looking at its sister code in Rugby League. It's sort of it's a working class cousin, and going, oh, that seems to work by rewarding an attacking kick, which is not a bad thing. However, it's more of a Rugby League style rule. You can see Rugby Union are realising that there's too much kick tennis, and kicking is not always rewarded with rewarding the attacking or the kicking side. So that is an interesting one. I don't mind the rule change, but certain teams have actually preferred knowing that this kick exists now to run the ball, and are willing to chance their hand ball in hand rather than ball off the boot, because kicks can go wrong and out on the full, and that's a problem. So Italy and Scotland are more willing to throw the ball around and be more attack minded. However, it's going to be interesting to see how Italy and Scotland do in a transitional phase where they may make a mistake, because they do play at 100 miles an hour, which is very entertaining for the neutral, and how they transition when they do cough up the ball, make that error, because they do play a high-paced attack game, which can lead to errors, and how they transition back to the defensive side of the game should there be a turnover. I find it interesting that I think Wales and England have a lot of off-field issues with finances at club level, and in Wales's case, not only at club level in the Welsh Premiership, but also with the four regions, which has also led to some problems where a lot of players now going overseas to play, which means Wales have got a very, very young lineup, plus their record over the last 12 months has not been great. I do fear for Wales, I really, really do. England, I think England are also in a transitional phase, and there's a lot of pressure on Steve Borthwick. He has made Mario Itoje captain. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Look, Mario Itoje is a brilliant second row or back row forward. He's a very good young player. He's a very skillful forward as well. He is a bit of the engine room of the England side. Will that put added pressure on his game with the captaincy? It can make or break a player. Some players thrive with a captaincy, especially when they're young. Sam Warburton was a brilliant captain for Wales when he was very, very young, and he wore that captaincy with pride, and it raised the level of his game. Some players do struggle with the captaincy and the added responsibility, so it will be interesting to see how Mario Itoje adopts the captaincy and how he feels on how he feels with it, and also how that will impact his play. Will it improve his play, or will that be an added burden that may actually weaken his play? But it's going to be interesting. It's a big decision by Steve Borthwick. He is under a lot of pressure. Warren Gatland. Yeah, Warren Gatland. I mean, he's a brilliant coach. Well, I don't always like the Welsh style of play, and I've had my critics from Welsh rugby fans on this very channel. And you look at the comment sections of years past when Warren Gatland was the head coach the previous time. I did cop it from Welsh fans. They felt I had a bias against them, or I just didn't like them or the team. I wasn't a fan of Warren Gatland's style of play. It is effective, however. However, this time round, does he have the troops available to implement the style of play that he wants? It's a very young Welsh setup. And the other issue that Wales have had, the Lewis Rees-Zammit exit from rugby union, the money side of things, hence why they've got a very young team. A lot of experienced Welsh players retired from the Test setup or retired from rugby in recent years, and their form hasn't been great. They had one decent year under Wayne Pivac, but for the most part it has been tough going, and even with Warren Gatland, brilliant coach that he is, it hasn't been great. They are not the Wales of 5, 10, 15 years ago, and that's very, very clear. It is a very young side. However, this young side could surprise us all and do really, really well. But I do think England and Wales are two teams in a transitional period. They are vulnerable, and when you've got young sides and defences that are struggling, because they have both struggled with the points against going up, when you've got sides like Italy and Scotland who like running and running the ball and attacking at pace, that's going to be interesting how the defences deal with being stretched and under pressure. And when you've got well-oiled machines like France and Ireland that have really good structured systems, production line of talent, again, they know the players are just slotting in really easily. There's no pressure on the French setup in regards to pressure on the coach unless they have a poor Six Nations. Antoine Dupont is back in the side, best player in the world in my opinion. There'll be those who say a South African or a Springbok or a New Zealander, an All Black should potentially be called the greatest player at the moment. But in my opinion, Dupont is the best player in the world right now. France missed him last year. Having him back in the side with his captaincy, his leadership, his skill set and his drive and the way he reads the game, I think is going to be crucial for them. I would expect Ireland and France to be duking it out for a potential Grand Slam or top spot. Bonus points are going to be crucial. I think that's what lets Italy down at times, is not getting that bonus point try or that losing bonus points sometimes. So that'll be a weakness in their game, is sometimes their game management a little bit. Overall, I think it's going to be more open this year. I think there's a few little cracks appearing in both France and Ireland. They have been found out on occasion. They're not perfect. But in saying that, I think that the Irish system and the French system, I think, is a good, strong system. Players know their role within that system. And the next man up mentality serves both those nations well. It's going to be interesting to see how Ireland perform now in the post-Sexton era long term, and who's going to nail down that 10 jersey long term. That, I think, is a key area for Ireland, but that actually may push those players going for the 10 jersey on the fly half roll on and raise their games and pose selection headaches for the Irish setup, which can be a good thing. As I say, Scotland and Italy, it's when they cough the ball up because they play that high energy, high paced attack. They're less likely to kick, whereas France and Ireland tend to kick a bit more, though France kick less than Ireland. I can see England and Wales relying more on the 50-22, for example, to get them out of trouble. They're two teams in transition, and I do fear for them at this time. I wouldn't spoon it's not the end of the world, because there's always building for the World Cup. that you have to take some bad defeats in there to learn how to win. Famously, the England side with Wilkinson and Dawson, that was led by Sir Clive Woodward, got hammered down under by Australia in 1997. They got hammered, absolutely hammered. Record-breaking defeat down under. Within a few years, they went on to win the World Cup against Australia in Australia. So you have to take these tough lessons as part of the growth. And England and Wales have got a lot of youngsters and debutants and inexperienced players in their squads. It's going to be make or break for some of them. It's going to be a baptism of fire for some of them. That step up from the URC or the Gallagher Premiership to Test level. It's going to be an eye opener for some of them. The pace of the game is that little bit quicker. The intensity is that little bit higher. But overall, I think it's actually going to be quite an open Six Nations. I think every nation at some point is capable of beating each other. It's not a dead cert. A Grand Slam is not a dead cert. I do think some of the rule changes that have come in the last couple of seasons, especially with tackle height, the 50-22, and now this 20-minute red card, could have positive and negative impacts on the game. There are areas that I think still need improvement from World Rugby. I've made that clear. Scrum time, I think, is a key area they still haven't fully fixed for me. And in regards to tackle technique, I think there still needs to be improvements made around tackle technique, because as I mentioned in the last video I did, in regards to like players tackling with their head on the wrong side, it is still a massive issue. They also need to figure out a way to reward lower tackles as well, like the chop tackle, legs tackles, because we're not rewarding it enough. I think the way the game has evolved in the last 20-25 years, a good low tackle or a good dump tackle is not rewarded as much as it used to be. A good man and ball tackle, which is legal, fair and safe, because of the legs above the horizontal. Honestly, I think common sense has sort of left, and we're now refereeing by the law, by black and white rather than common sense a little bit. I think some of the authority of the officials has been sort of eroded away, and we're refereeing by outcomes and by video ref, which means a bit more of a stop-start game. Hence why you then need the kicking rule changes, because the way the officiating has now been done by the letter of the law a little bit too much, it makes the game a bit more stop-start. We want the game to flow. Certain teams may want it a bit stop-start, like England and Wales. They may want a bit more of a stop-start, scrappy game in order to stay in the game. Whereas Ireland want to have just momentum. France will always counter-attack and will use their set piece. And Italy and Scotland will just want to run the ball a lot. So 4 of the 6 teams want more flowing games for a variety of different reasons, because of the way the style of play that they play, their tactics. England and Wales will want it stop-starts. They will want to have a lot of reset scrums. They want to have it scrappy. They want to have it stop-start, so the other side can't build up that momentum to put them under pressure. So we could see teams trying to exploit this 20-minute red card, and maybe not in the spirit of the game, where I think that could be a downfall of that 20-minute red card rather than just the sin bin red card that we had before. But that's my views on it. I think it's going to be a fun, open tournament, and I will try and watch as many games as possible. However, this weekend I am not at home. I am otherwise quite busy, so I'm having a weekend away. I've got 3 days, a long weekend, so I'm not actually here. But I will try and watch as many games as possible, on top of other live sports such as the FA Cup 4th round next weekend, for example. So I'll try and fit as much as I can in. In years past, I've watched every game. It's not going to be possible this year, unfortunately. But as I say, I will try and watch as many games as possible, and we shall see if the 20-minute red card is a good thing for the game, or, as I fear, a potential bad thing for the game. And we'll see how Wales and England do, considering the transitional phase that both these test sides are in, and with the issues they have off the field in the club game, behind the scenes with finances. I think that actually is unfortunately impacting the strength of the test sides they can put on the field. And we'll see how Italy do, if they continue to progress. Scotland, if they can get a bit more consistency, because they're good one week and potentially bad the next. They are a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. They are better than what they were. I think Gregor Townsend's done a real solid job. It's just getting that consistency out of them, because they can be brilliant one game and mediocre the next. And I do still think it's going to be an arm wrestle between France and Ireland about who will be lifting the trophy come Easter. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on where you think the nations are going to finish, who's going to finish where, how do you think teams are going to do. Will we find some diamonds in the rough with some lesser known players really staking a name for themselves, making a name for themselves, and these younger players, are they ready to step up to test level? It's going to be fun. There's going to be some debutants, there's going to be some exciting rugby, and also there's going to be some interesting decisions, and we're going to have some feedback on that 20-minute red card. I can see it being the wrong rule change by World Rugby. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.